What's up, FNL podcast listeners? This is Jake, and I wanted to talk to you before we start the show a little bit about advertising opportunities. Right now, our fan base is growing, and it's growing by the week. And I personally didn't even know we had this big of a fan base, but we looked into the numbers, and it's getting huge. Right now, we're averaging over 10,000 views on Twitter alone, social media-wise. We've got a great following on Facebook and the website. The episodes, right now, we're getting close to 17,000 to 18,000 hits on a weekly basis for our episodes. Now, we also have it in iTunes, and all the advertising that we do goes right into the recording. So it's me doing your commercial for you. And we can work with any budget you got, so don't worry about that. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be very, very cheap for you to get your business name out there or whatever you want some attention to go to. So let me know if you're interested in doing some advertising. Hit me up on the Facebook fan page. Just look it up, Friday Night Lights Podcast with Jake Hirsch, or hit me up on the website, www.FridayNightLightsPodcast.com. Thanks for listening and thanks for the support. And here's the show.
Recording from the heart of Calgary's Red Mile, you're listening to the Friday Night Lights Podcast with Jake Hirsch.
Human beings in a mob. What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer who don't believe in anything?
Listeners, this is your host, Jake Hirsch, and I'd like to welcome you to episode number 13. We've got a great show for you today. It's packed. It's full. I've got a new segment coming up first, and then I've got my guest who's come on. Now, before I tell you about my guest, I want to thank last week's guest, Robin Black. Got a ton of feedback on the show from him, and everybody loved it. He's had a great story, and he's just so honest and so raw and just not afraid to put it all out there. And I love it. And we've got some really exciting episodes coming up as well. I think the show is running very smooth, and I'm glad that you guys are a part of it. I'm glad you're listening to it. I wanted to dip into the mailbag really quick, actually, while I have you, because that's the one thing I haven't done lately is actually read. I don't think I've ever read the mail, but anyway, here's the first mail that I got today. And it's from Sophia, who is from, looks like Florida. Sophia from Florida. Sophia, I didn't even know I had any listeners from Florida. So this is a monumental day for me. Sophia writes, okay, here we go. Dear Jake, love the show. Love the fact that you hang it all out there. I'm not sure what I'm hanging all out there, but I will take that. I wanted to know if you are married. Well, Sophia, I very rarely, if ever, talk about my personal life on here, relationship status-wise. But I will say this, is because I think things do need to stay, somewhat private. I need to have some type of a personal life. And yeah, I do talk a lot about, personal things and stuff like that. But, I kind of stay away from discussing relationships and stuff on here. I will tell you this though, that, I'm not married. I was at one time, and I'm sure in the future you will hear all about my ex-wife ripping my heart out of my ass and how it made me a better person. Anyway, and as for, getting married again, I mean, I'm always up for an adventure. So yeah, it all depends, of course. But yeah, my heart is taken right now. So, I'm not sure if that was your question or if that's where you wanted me to go with it. My heart belongs to somebody. And, so anyway, but thank you for listening and thanks for tuning in. And if that changes, I will email you. How's that? I'm just joking. No, I'm not joking. Well, I'm joking in a sense of I'm not going to email you and tell you I'm single, but of course. Anyway, I'm just going to fucking move on. This is embarrassing. Okay. Next email is from Carolyn. And Carolyn is from Calgary. And Carolyn writes in, so I just spent my morning bus ride listening to your podcast interview. Let me tell you, am I ever happy I had my big ass sunglasses on because I was laughing, I was crying. It was awesome, but it was so bang on. I absolutely agree with pretty much everything that was said. And let me tell you, us good women who do still exist, I fucking hate these entitled princesses because they're the ones who ruin the good guys. Now, Carolyn is referring to the interview that I did with Killmeister. And I shouldn't say ruin like it's a lost cause, but they're the reason we have to fight so hard to try and break down the walls. Your intro is what brought me to tears, though, partly because I can relate to every ounce of it. Well, okay, minus the butterflies at my wedding, and partly because it made me sad that someone else had gone through all the same crap as me. Anyway, enough of my rambling. I just wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to listening to all the others. Carolyn, I cannot thank you enough for this letter, this email. You definitely made me choke up a bit to know that I'm able to touch people in that way. And for you to kind of, that we can connect on that level just to know that, other people are out there and they've experienced the same things and we go through the same things. And, I didn't have a chance to read this email before, but it meant a lot to me. And I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for writing me and telling me, about, the effect that it had on you. And I'm glad you're listening. And, that puts a big smile on my face. So, Carolyn, I love you, and thank you again for making my day. Well, I'm going to save some more of the mailbag for the next episode because some of it is just, some of it is pretty. I got to weed through a lot of these. Some of them are fucking crazy as shit. Anyway, today's guest is Dan Ewen. If you don't know Dan Ewen, you're missing out because this guy is one of the best interviews I've done. And I know I've said that 1,000 times, but I'm being honest with you. Dan Ewen is just on a different level, hilarious, man. He's got such a great story about moving out to Hollywood and how he grew up, and I don't want to ruin it for you, but I was excited to get this interview off the ground. I've known Dan for a little while on Twitter. He's good friends with Mr. George Wallace, and if you don't know who George Wallace is, you don't know anything about comedy, because George Wallace is one of the godfathers and legends of comedy. And Dan Ewen is actually a really good friend of his, and they've written a book together, and he's just got his hand in a lot of projects, and they're very, very great, interesting, and funny projects. So anyway, we're going to turn things over to Jasmine in the newsroom. We're going to go there first, and then without further ado, we're going to have an interview with my buddy, Dan Ewen.
And now to the FNL Podcast Newsroom, your host, Jasmine Hirsch.
Jasmine with our news correspondent. Jasmine, how are you?
Doing great, you know?
Good. Okay. The reason why we're laughing so much right now is because we were just discussing paperwork for another country to get into it.
Well, if you guys only knew how many times we have to film, or not film, but like speak.
You mean record takes?
Record takes over and over again, because my dad is kind of anal about every little thing.
Well, I just want to make sure we're putting out a damn good product here for the listeners at home. Anyway, how long are you going to Canada for?
Until the 19th of August. So
wow.
I'm so excited. I got all of it memorized.
You got it memorized?
Yeah.
What part do you have memorized?
2 p.m.
Oh, you got the plane information memorized.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've had fun in Canada before, right?
Yeah, last time I went skiing, so that was quite an adventure.
Yes, skiing. Yeah. How did that go?
Well,
I mean, I was there for the last half of it.
He showed up when I was getting good.
No, I was at school, actually.
Yeah,
I was in school.
Yeah, he showed up when I was when I was kind of getting in there, doing my little thing. But in the beginning, I felt like I was just like my legs were going to do the splits and I was going to die up there. But
you did really well.
Yeah, I thought it did. It was pretty.
Is that
easy.
something you want to do again?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you like skiing?
I love it.
You weren't put off by falling flat in your face in the snow?
Well, that was one time, because I'm pretty awesome at everything I do, obviously. So
yeah,
that was
we'll edit that part out. Just joking. Anyway, okay, so you got some news stories this week. Lots of stuff happening in the news.
Lots of stuff.
Okay, what are we going to first?
Well, I thought it'd be interesting to share the story of these two transgender women that were going to the DMV, and they were getting their photo taken.
For people that don't know, the DMV is Department of Motor Vehicles, because in some countries they don't know what DMV is.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. But anyway, the DMV chief was telling them to take off their makeup. And they had an argument saying, well, aren't we supposed to look how we look normally every day?
In the picture of the ID. Right.
And the picture of the ID. And so the guy was saying, well, that's falsifying your ID. And it's like if you were to put a scarf over your face. Like, you're not showing the truth of who you are.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So these two women...
Transgender.
Now, okay.
Well, they're men.
They're men, but they're living as women.
Right.
Okay. Do you know if they've had surgery and all that stuff?
No, they haven't.
They haven't had surgery yet.
As far as
they haven't really said.
They haven't released anything about that yet.
Okay.
But of course, the women feel that they should be treated with respect,
right? And
that they shouldn't lie on their photo ID.
Right.
So
now that's a very interesting thing, because what if they wanted to stop living as women and wanted to go around as a man? And wouldn't that be a form of hiding your identity? But I guess that could go both ways, right? I mean, I could go take a picture as a man and dress up as a woman every day.
Right.
And they would not. But I guess it's going according to your ID. I mean, if that's how you're going to live your life as a woman, then that's probably how you should have your identification taken.
And I agree with you. So they're actually taking this up to the state in which they live
state court?
And they're pretty much doing a protest against this is not right, because we are just like every other human being, and they were being regarded as an it instead of a he or she.
It's a tough situation because, I mean, okay, so let's say that you live your life as a woman.
Right.
But you're technically not biologically a woman yet, okay? You haven't had your Timbits removed, or you haven't had your, kolache taken off yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's say you get thrown in prison. Should you go to an all-female prison, or should you go to a men prison?
I think, technically speaking, if you have male parts in your body, then you should be
in a
sent.
male.
Yeah, because I mean, think about how that would play out. If you were sent to a woman prison and you had male parts, that would kind of be a risk to the woman, I guess you can say. Like, they'd probably rape him or do, if they haven't seen. Well,
they'd probably wonder why there's so many pregnancies in the prison.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They have to neuter him.
Well, that's an interesting thing. So keep me up to date with that, okay? In the future, let me know how that plays out.
Will do. So next on our list, I'm sure you all have heard about the immigration law problems that we've been having in the U.S. if you were here. And Sarah Palin has quite the mouth for it, even though she has no place in our government system here. So they came up with a new national poll, saying they've, asked voters if they think they've had enough of Palin, and 54% of America said that they are tired of her.
Well, I'm surprised that percentage isn't higher, because I know I've had an ass full of Sarah Palin.
Right.
And I think the majority of people that I talk to seem to not really enjoy her take on things. She seems to really appeal to a certain demographic of Republican Party members, and more specifically the Tea Party, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Sarah Palin was a presidential candidate,
right?
Back in 2006, I believe, or 2008, or I think it's 2006, 2008. Anyway, back
around
when,
that time.
Right when Barack Obama got inducted into office, and since that time, she was the governor of Alaska, right?
Right.
Okay,
correct.
And then she quit halfway through her term. She didn't finish her term as the governor. She got up and walked out.
Yeah, probably got bored or whatever the hell.
Well, it was either she got bored of doing it, she was under federal investigation for whatever, inconsistencies were happening in her office, and I think it had to do around, corporate favoritism and funding, and, there was some type of some type of a inconsistency with businesses and corporate, funding and stuff like that. So, or giving people contracts for work, and there was something going on, and with her husband and all that shit. I don't like this woman because she's managed to stay relevant in the media, even though she doesn't hold any position.
What gets me upset is that all these people from the Senate have her as co-hosts, or they keep on including her, and it's like, why would I take any opinion, or why would I have to listen to her when she hasn't done anything in in the White House, or she hasn't done any type of thing that has changed America anyway, so I don't think she should really have any opinion on it when she didn't even finish out her role as a governor. So how is she the one to speak? No, that's a good point, because that's the truth. She has not held political office for more than a half a term for a governor. And whatever experience she's had before that has not had any effect on the American people. However, she has kind of portrayed herself as a voice of America, the voice of the right, the voice of the Tea Partiers and stuff like that. Now, granted, I will give her credit. She's a good organizer. Right.
And she knows how to do public speaking. She knows, like, the shock value, and she knows how to get people, to rally around her and to, do all this stuff. But this is a woman who failed in political office, did not do anything with her time there, except make Alaska probably a worse place than what it is. And I'm not speaking from experience. That's a complete opinion, because I don't know her track record in Alaska. But I don't think a lot of people were happy that she just got up and left half term.
Right.
And I think because that when she got on the road with John McCain, who was the running mate, she was going to be vice president to John McCain, is that she got a ton of notoriety, a lot of fame, and she went back to the sticks in Alaska and thought, this place is boring, and it's not under the lights, and it's not under the, the press and the media attention and all that type of stuff. So I'm going to go to where the people love me and want to put me out in front of the stage and in the rally and under the lights and all this shit.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, she can kiss my ass, because the fact that she gets equal press time to people like John Boehner, who's the Speaker of the House, that he would have to answer questions to her, that people have to answer to her like she's type of, an authority.
She's
these people
housewife.
these people have put their years into politics and their years into the positions that they're in, but yet she gets equal playtime and equal clout as they have.
Right.
It's bullshit.
And I don't think that she has any right whatsoever to speak of the president that way. I mean, what has she I don't understand it, how she's still relevant in today's society.
Right. Well, she's going around and she's talking about impeaching President Obama and all this type of stuff. And this is neither a left or a right issue. This is an issue about somebody who has not earned their stripes to carry that much weight. And for people out there that are like, oh, well, just because she's a good speaker and she's this or she's that, and, if she was that great, if people loved her that much, why doesn't she have a seat in the Congress? Why doesn't she have a seat in the Senate? Why isn't she, hired on as a, how come she has not been voted in for anything?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If people love her that much, the bottom line is that she appeals to a special demographic of voters that love people who talk out of their ass and who have tons of, shit to say. And it's just very, very, I don't know.
Amen.
Yeah, it just sounds very, it's annoying. It's annoying to have people like that. I mean, to me, she's the equivalent of Ted Nugent, just somebody that has zero experience but loves to talk like they're a pro.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. Anyway, we can go on forever about that. What else we got on the burner?
Anyway, so I'm sure this is also one of those top stories that have reached national headlines here about a boy. Well, his name, first of all, was Cooper Harris, and he left his son in the car. Am I correct? Yeah.
Sad story.
Right, and this has been happening so much recently. And I think I kind of wanted to bring it up, not just because of the case, but because of the argument that is going on now as to if it is an accident. I know with his case, it's looking more and more into it not being an accident, but with it just in general, like how do we approach situations like this where parents say that they forget their child was in the car?
Yeah. And I mean, it's a difficult situation because I know that people have legitimately forgotten things in the car. Now, whether it be your sunglasses is a different story, or your purse, or your cell phone, or a human person. The fact that this guy went to work and left his child in the car, and I think that if it just happened like that, I think people would have been able to forgive, and people were able to say, listen, there's a certain amount, because I think when it first happened and he came out, and from all the reports in the press, it was that he fell apart out in the parking lot. He was just yelling and screaming, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? And he's going through all the emotions and all the feelings and all this, people said that this guy just melted down. But as they dug deeper, as you mentioned, as they dug deeper into the case and deeper into what has been going on, this guy is being made out to look like a sadistic asshole.
Well, what I don't understand here is how, not how, but it seems as if they have found an entirely new different case, and they've the case with the son has kind of gotten out of the spotlight, and it's more of what he's done with the sexting part.
Right.
And I think they should... You
mean the focus has been more on what he was doing? Well, and I think it's because it lends credibility to his story. I think it shows that this guy was into a lot more deeper, darker stuff than just leaving his child out in the car. So I think in law enforcement, what they like to do in the court and in the press and stuff like that is they want to give people an idea of what this person's character is like and of what this person is all about. Because if they just put this guy up and they said, oh, well, he's a, great father and a good husband and a churchgoer, and he's been a loyal, and he's been a loyal employee for a long period of time, and he's this pillar of the community, then people wouldn't doubt that it was an accident. But if they go in there and he portrays himself to be this great father, good husband, pillar of the community, and then they start digging up all this shit on him, and they're like, oh, well, guess what? This guy isn't Mr. Good Dad. This guy was, Googling children dying and, what degrees does it need to be for your child to die in the car, and sexting underage children. One of the girls was 16 years old that he was, texting back and forth with, and it was all sexually, provocative and stuff like that, exchanging pictures and things like that. So I think they're trying to build a case around what this person looks like. Right.
But I mean, if you really think about it, dropping the whole thing about, him asking how long his term was going to be, because that obviously didn't do good for him.
Right.
But more of sure, him sexting was really a horrible thing and really disgusting, but does that really make him a killer? Is what I'm trying to understand.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, there's people out there that can be horrible human beings,
right,
and do really stupid things and do stupid stuff and not necessarily be guilty of killing their child.
Right.
And it could all be completely, isolated from this incident, and it could have nothing to do with it.
Right.
But I think what they're trying to do, like I said, is give you an idea that this person is just not clean cut. Mm-hmm. He maybe had some ulterior motives. He was Googling, or he was in a lot of these community forums of living without kids. What would my life be like without children? And, being single again. And
So maybe he kind of had this fantasy that maybe I can drop the wife and go for this 16-year-old girl.
Or whoever else. Right. Apparently he was sexting 6 or 7 different women or whatever. Yeah. But the plot thickens, and, there's a lot of shit going on with this guy and his wife. She's been dragged across the media too for looking like she has zero emotion in court. Right. That they're talking details about their son and all these types of things, and she just sits there smacking her gum like it's a normal Tuesday.
They have really torn her apart.
Yeah, they have.
They really have.
Yeah. So, and that's what makes it difficult, is finding a jury. If that's where it goes, whether it's going to be a jury or whether it's going to be tried by a judge. How do you find unbiased people out there? How do you find people that don't already have an opinion of you?
Well,
right?
everyone
So
is
it's
biased,
difficult, right?
So, I mean,
yeah, but I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
it depends on, whether or not people have been following the story as much as
Right.
everybody else has, right?
Right,
Or,
true,
what have you.
true.
But anyway, good news stories. And thank you again for coming on and giving us some things to talk about. And we will see you next week.
okay, my pleasure.
Alrighty.
There's a hockey player named Todd Ewen who was one of those.
That's right. That's right.
That's kind of that. As far as I know, that's the only outside of some books written by Ewens. That's the guy who best represents the fighting spirit of the Ewens. But he was one of those thugs that only just comes in the. Yeah, he was a goon. He was a total goon.
Yeah. I think he
got some good
played.
fights online.
Oh man, I know he was he played for a bunch of teams, but I think the last one. I think he played for the San Jose Sharks or something like that.
I think he did. He had like a string there. They're like, yeah, should we bring that guy to punch some people for a few weeks? Sure, let's sign him to a short term.
Yeah.
I think Montreal was the place he was at.
That's right. He played
Longest.
for the Canadiens, and then I think he
Yeah.
went. I think he stayed in California for a bit. I think he was with the Ducks for a bit, and then
That's funny.
and then the Sharks or something like that. You don't have any relation to Todd, though, do you?
I don't.
No.
I don't.
What about the ass-kicking qualities?
There are different Ewens. Like I'm assuming he's somewhere from like the Scottish Ewens, like Ewens.
Oh, I see. Okay,
And
different
then there
clans.
were Ewens that were like Polish Jews, and,
okay.
unfortunately, or like the Yiddish word Eben. It was one of those Ellis Islands where Ellis Island changes, where they're like, your name's too weird.
We're gonna change it for you.
Yeah, we're gonna make it Ewen now because Eben is like ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So, at any rate, so then we all became Ewen. So now there's like a lot of Scottish Ewens and a lot of blah blah blah. All right,
No shit.
but enough about that shit.
So you're out in California, though, right?
Oh yeah. Santa Monica, right
Santa
on the
Monica.
beach.
Santa Monica.
I'm on the
Jesus
edge of the
Christ.
continent over here. Yep.
I used to live in Venice, just like right down
Yeah.
the road, down in. I used to have a place. It was an apartment. It was off of Westminster. It was like a block from the old. Well, it was like the first Gold's Gym. That's where like all the celebs hang out. But the first Gold's Gym I think burned down, which is right down the road. But the other I guess flagship Gold's Gym it was like a block away from my house. But what a shit show Venice is. But Santa Monica is beautiful. The promenade and everything.
Yeah, it's
forget
nice.
about it.
It's
Yeah.
like you're in the city, but it doesn't feel. You're not.
Yeah.
No one's actively trying to pry your window open and steal your shit.
We'll say
Occasionally, but not actively, constantly. Like Venice, it was just like,
yeah.
someone peeling open our window again to steal our shit. Yeah.
I used to have to go out in the morning and check underneath my vehicle to see if there's anybody sleeping under the vagrants. Oh man, it was. I was like, this is the dream.
My second day ever in LA,
Right.
I got decked on the Venice Beach basketball court.
Like you got
Yeah.
punched.
Like I have if I have one like cool guy scar, it's from getting punched by this guy at Venice Beach, and we were playing 2-on-2.
Right.
And I'm a good baller, and my buddy he was like an all-city point guard for like Notre Dame High School back in the day, and we were balling these guys.
Right.
And this is right in front of there are bleachers there and a bunch of tourists watching, and it was a very humiliating. It was something like 9-1.
Oh yeah. So you
And
guys
I
were
checked
putting
the
it
ball
on.
into this guy. I had just blocked I just swatted his shit about 15 feet out of bounds. Listen to me, I sound so cocky. Okay. At any rate, so it was their ball, and I checked it into him, and he bent over to tie his shoe right as I bounced the ball to him, and it hit him in the face.
Oh shit! So he took that as like this fucking guy wants to go.
Dude came at me. I did the exact wrong thing. I put my hands out completely to the side, which is you only do it if you're absolutely not in the wrong. I was like, why would I hit you in the face? Sorry,
Right.
I thought I was ready to check it to you, man.
Yeah.
And he just slugged me, right? And I stayed up. And so this guy's circling me, and this guy's buddy is circling me now.
Holy
And my friend comes
shit.
up to me, and I had just moved here, and my friend's from out here.
Right.
But he's from the Valley. He's like from Woodland Hills or something.
Oh,
He
okay.
comes,
Yeah.
So he just kind of says to me, look, man, I mean, you want to fight these guys? Like, we don't know who these guys are. Like, they're clearly locals, you know.
Right,
they're there with bikes and a bag connected to their bike, and who knows what's in the bag. He's just like, look, do you want to fight these guys or what? You know? And I was like, let's go to the fucking hospital. And so we were leaving, and the guy's like, man, I'm sorry, I'm a real aggressive player, man. I'm a real aggressive player. You're really good. You should come down here often. I was like, fuck you, you're an aggressive player. You stopped the game to punch my face. You punched my mouth hole. That was not game activity.
That's not.
You know?
Yeah. That's
and
not.
So I licked my wound, but so we fucking finished the game though first.
No way.
And I got blood, you know, my shirt was just soaked, and we finished the fucking game. They didn't score again, and then we left. I had to finish that game. I was not going to. And then we went, you know, I looked like a jack-o'-lantern on the way to UCLA. It was like...
Did you bust your tooth out or something?
Like, it didn't, it was crazy. It just, the lip cut on the tooth. So but it would look like someone took scissors and just snipped straight up toward my nostril.
Right.
At any rate, it was that's my Venice Beach story.
Damn.
It was glorious. It was glorious. We were blowing these guys off the court, and of course I got slugged in the mouth.
That's a good California story, though.
It was. I swear to God, it was my second day in California, and
your family must have flipped out, right? Like
on the MMA front. It actually indirectly, semi-directly led to me taking about a year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Get out of town.
At the Gracie Academy in Torrance.
Holy shit! So that's like that's where it was born. Well, not born, but I mean in the United States, that's where it all came out of.
I mean, it was absolutely bizarre because I'm a huge, you know, like UFC guy, especially the early ones. They're still great, but I loved the no weight class.
Oh yeah.
And if it ends up on the ground, tough shit.
Right.
You know, like we're not going to make you stand up. Like
exactly,
it's valid. What happened on the ground is part of it.
Yeah,
and
you got to figure it out. Yeah.
Right. So I'd always been enamored with the Gracies, and then I saw that Horian Gracie had an academy in Torrance, and I went and Hoist was an instructor there.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm sparring, working out after class and just working through moves and stuff. And Hoist is like, no, let me show you. Hoist Gracie is straddling my shoulders. It's like, this is fucked up.
That is crazy.
Gracie is on top of me.
Unbelievable, man.
And the Gracies it was crazy because there are the three youngest Horian's kids at that time were little kids.
Right.
But those guys, from the time they're a year old, they're starting to learn like arm bars and shit.
Yeah.
It was always a nice serving of humble pie when at the end of class, you know, you're sparring and an 8-year-old is just beating the shit out of you. You know, like you feel like you're throwing them around, but they know exactly what they're doing, and they're just waiting to put you in some hold. And it's like, shit.
Yeah. No, that's like I've always said that. I've always said like because I mean I trained jiu-jitsu for years, right? And I always said like that's the most humbling thing is when and people don't understand that. They're like, you know, oh, like what do you know, it's barbaric and it's this, it's that. But like I get two things out of it. One, I used to when I used to like because you know what, like kind of towards the end of class, I don't know how you know Hoist and stuff like that ran his classes, but usually you know like we'd do the warm up, then we'd work technique, and then towards the end of class you would start doing all of your sparring and stuff. But like when you're going against somebody on the mat and you're doing jiu-jitsu and you guys are rolling and someone's trying to choke you the fuck out, nothing comes to mind. Like, I mean, marriage problems, bills, you know, people that piss you off. Like, your mind is just like, I'm trying to save myself from getting choked out from this guy. And then the second thing, what I was trying to explain to people is how humbling it is because, you know, I mean, now I'm like 39, but I mean, you know, when I started rolling, I was like, you know, I was in my 20s and you're getting tapped out by guys who are like, you know, like you said, like young kids. I remember getting tapped out by guys who are like 14, 15 years old. And I'd just be like, man, I got my ass handed to me tonight by like a 15-year-old kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to at least put an asterisk on it because it was someone with the last name Gracie doing it to me.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if a 13-year-old with the last name like Johnston was, and that might be a real hit. My ego, but I just want to be like, look, it's like in this person's DNA to kick my ass.
Yeah. It's bred from birth. But yeah, if Jonathan Lipschitz from Torrance chokes me out, I don't have any valid excuse as to why that occurs.
No, but he's been learning from Gracie.
Exactly.
And it's just, that place is amazing. And that's an amazing family.
Well, what an interesting foray into Hollywood. But let's start back from the beginning. How the hell did you get out to Hollywood? Because you're originally from Athens, Georgia, right?
Yeah, well, so it's Miami till I was 12.
Okay.
And then we were part of, my family was, I'm ashamed to say, my family was part of like the white flight out of Miami. Because Miami was starting to get, some crazy shit was going on. I had an aunt and uncle, and my aunt was an ER nurse. So we had a bunch of family down in Miami. My aunt was an ER nurse, and my uncle was a cop.
Right.
Right as the cocaine cowboys kind of started taking over town, and as Miami started to get so fucking dicey, and Miami's a great place if you have money, Miami can be a super fun place. If you don't have money, it's like...
Yeah.
There's parts that are down like third world. So at any rate, my aunt in the ER was now seeing like people riddled with bullet holes, and my uncle was coming upon mass graves and Colombian neckties and shit. And they kind of looked at each other and said, like, this place is kind of like they had grown up down there. Like, this place is no longer like kind of a hip, touristy, fun, beachy town. This place is kind of like the point. This is where cocaine enters the country and people kill each other for it now. This is now like, fuck, this is insane. So they left first, and one by one, like my family started kind of reading the writing on the wall and getting out, and we were the last of the Mohicans. So eventually we left, and I always feel I love Miami, but I always felt very fortunate that my uncle ended up the police department up in Athens had an opening, and he interviewed for it and ended up there. So then as the family started to retreat from Miami, we ended up in Athens, Georgia, which was a big culture shock from a big city to, at that point, it was a town of 40,000 people.
Holy shit.
Shit, man, what a town. A college town, progressive, like hipster fucking town with...
It's like a pocket of like Santa Barbara in the middle of the southern country there. Yeah.
And there's something very special that happens in a college town like Madison or Austin or Athens. Like there's a very cool mix, and at any given point in a town of just 40,000 people, and suddenly there are 36,000 people added to the town who are all between the ages of 18 and 24.
Holy shit.
I don't know. So ended up in Athens, Georgia, which was very cool, and at some point started to watch a shit ton of movies, namely comedies. Mm-hmm. Mel Brooks was a huge
inspiration or
game changer. Mel Brooks, The Naked Gun. Was a huge comedy guy, and realized around 15, I think, that I wanted to try and make movies.
Wow.
And ended up looking for a college that had that met 100% of financial need, because I was a food stamp kid.
Right.
And then ended up finding Denison University in Ohio, Granville, Ohio.
Jesus. Now, were your parents pretty, like, were they behind you, or were they just like...
Oh yeah, no, my parents were totally, they never had any pressure on me to do this or that or the other.
Right.
Neither one of them exactly, it's not like one was a dentist and the other was a trial lawyer. Like they were both artists, and they were both kind of artists who never were recognized for what they did, for their gifts, and so they had no... I think they recognized, and my mom had done a bunch of plays and acted in plays when she was little, some off-Broadway stuff. Like I think she recognized... The bottom line is there is a business around show. Right. It's just the term show business. There is a business there. You just got to go where it is. I mean, I knew that if you want to be a coal miner, you got to go where the coal mines are. So I wanted to learn about film, and so I studied it in Ohio at Denison, and did the graduate, pack up your car with all your shit,
What
You
was
sent out some graduation cards, so you got a little graduation money for your down payment on a fucking apartment, and that's all you own in the world is that and whatever fits in your 85 Toyota Camry hatchback, and you fucking drive across the country, and you don't even it was hilarious. You know, you drive across the freaking country. I didn't even realize I'm driving through the Mojave Desert. I didn't put any sunblock on. You don't know because the wind of the car.
right?
I mean, the wind. You're going so fast, you don't feel it. And then I remember getting in. When I got into L.A., at the end of the day, I looked down. Literally, my left arm was bubbling up. It was bubbling
Like
from
fucking
the
lasagna
sun.
when you pulled in.
Yeah, it was like a lasagna. But so you live and learn. But so was that. So you packed did that whole go west young man thing because this is where you make movies.
How good was the program at Denison? Was it?
Denison was an amazing program because it was interesting. It had a lot of equipment
Right.
and not a lot of majors. So like when I got out here, I met USC film graduate students that were just getting to shoot stuff on 16 millimeter film and just getting to. And I was 17 years old. And my second week at Denison University, they handed me a 16 millimeter film camera and said, "Okay, here's your assignment." So in a weird way, it's like a sleeper, under the radar kind of film school to go to.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck it, really in film school, you're watching films.
Right.
You're watching movies. You're trying to learn how they did it. You're trying to learn the theories behind that shit.
Right.
And you can watch a lot of movies anywhere, And then, but to have access to equipment and start playing around with making your own right away, it was a great place to study film. Denison has a pretty cool little film mafia out here. Steve Carell.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jennifer Garner, Michael Eisner.
Wow.
There's an interesting crew of folks from this little 1,800 student liberal arts college in Ohio. So
that's pretty awesome. I had no idea that they had that type of program there.
Yeah,
and getting hands on and behind a camera is, I mean, shit. That's
it's when there are only 28 majors.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty close knit group of people.
Anybody from your graduating class that besides yourself that had any success out there?
Well, there's one of the top. My buddy Greg Evans is an big editor on Scandal right now, and also my friend Lynn Moncrief is DP. He shot about 10 features, and
wow,
it's interesting. I mean, it's a tough town. And some people that came out here ended up kind of going back to other places and teaching or going, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a grind.
Yeah.
It's a grind. The reward is great.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people come here. I mean, it's just droves of people coming here every year.
Oh, for sure.
It's looking for that same, I don't know, for that golden ticket, for lack of a better, and the reward is great, but therefore the competition is great. So it's
wow, man, that's pretty crazy. So you show up and so you're in California. You look like a baked lasagna. You've got your lips split open.
Yeah.
Are you just like, fuck this town, I'm going back, or is it like I'm going to stay and grind it out?
No, I'm one of those no plan B people.
Put all your eggs in. Huh?
Yeah, no plan B. There was never a plan B. So I think very often the people who are stupid enough not to have a plan B are the ones who ultimately find a way to make it happen.
Right.
If you have I forget who said. Someone said if you have a plan B, you'll use it.
Right. That's a good point. That's a
good
point.
So it's interesting. So I came out. And it was so I had just enough money to put it down on an apartment, hustled some landlord into letting me move into the guest house, like, oh, you seem like a good kid. Yeah, it was like Walter Testa. I mean, literally one foot in the grave, the other on a banana peel. But he had some guest house he owned in East Hollywood. They filmed Cops on my street. They literally filmed an episode of Cops on my street. I remember I was calling my friends, they're shooting cops on my street. I didn't even realize what the area I had moved into. Like, this must be a really shitty area, Mom.
Filming cops there. Holy Christ.
Yeah, and so she hears the helicopter in the background. So, he talks to you. Okay, you seem like a nice kid. Okay, you can move in. I didn't have a job or anything at the time, but then he's just slinging your resume around and around and around.
Right.
And it turned out, in one of my graduation cards, my great aunt Selma wrote a. This is I didn't. This is you want me to be this biographical?
Absolutely,
man.
I feel like
I'm
love
on
it, dude.
like this is amazing. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm on like Barbara Walters or something.
Tell me about Aunt Selma.
I haven't even had my coffee yet today, and I'm talking like this. You can't even imagine. Once I get a hold of a latte, it's fucking over. So my Aunt Selma writes on a card, like, Daniel, you should call your cousin Jack when you get to L.A. I think he works in the pictures, right? And that's, if you know my Aunt Selma, that's not far off. Rest her soul.
That is so like that era, though. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I think they work in the picture shows. Yeah.
And I called so it turns out, my cousin Jack, who I had never met, it's on one of those, we were two branches of a family tree that are on opposite sides of the trunk, it's
right.
like, it turns out, my Uncle Jack was a guy, this was part of my distant Miami family that had moved out here, and he had started writing and eventually found a way to start writing television. And he had written a few feature things that didn't go anywhere, just were sitting on his shelf collecting dust.
Right.
And so one day his agent called and said, Jack, they're looking for something for that actor James Carey on that In Living Color show.
No shit.
Do you have anything for that James Carey, the white guy on In Living Color? And Jack looked at his shelf on the wall and said, shit, I've got this whacked out comedy about a pet detective. It's so weird. I put like Dan Marino in it, and it's like,
get the fuck out of here.
And he's like, let's just send it over, right? And then now, when you go to Jack's house, which is, top of the hill, like, for those of you out there, like LA, there's just the Santa Monica Mountains that kind of divide the valley from the
right. There's
a
different
basin,
class,
and he's at the very top of it with the Millennium Pool. And when you walk in his house, his foyer and hallway, it's Ace Ventura posters in 20 different languages.
No way.
Because every lunchbox, that became a cartoon, that became action figures, that became like, so it is hilarious. But it's a funny. The town is everyone is one idea blowing up away from
living like
from
Uncle
being
Jack,
set.
right?
From being set. So at the time, Jack had just agreed to start producing on a show called Silk Stockings,
which was on the USA Network.
It was
right?
on USA Network,
right.
And it was and Jack Bernstein was on it, and it was a Stephen J. Cannell show.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up watching Stephen J. Cannell shows. He A-Team,
right.
21 Jump Street.
Oh yeah.
Knight Rider, like the guy. At the end of the shows, he's typing on the typewriter and he pulls the page up and it becomes a C. Yeah. So that's Stephen Cannell, and I stayed in touch with Jack when I first got there, and a little bit later he accepted this job as a producer on Silk Stockings, and he said, I need a writer assistant. You've never done that. You've never been a PA, but would you be interested? And so I came in and interviewed, and I got the job as that. So I never even realized I had any connection out here, but yeah, I guess my first job was I was a nepotistic. I'm one of those nepotist assholes that fucking got a job because of a fucking uncle, because of a cousin.
Yeah, you gotta.
So suddenly I was sitting there in rooms with Stephen J. Cannell, who had done all these shows that I had idolized, and it was pretty amazing. Interesting thing about Stephen J. Cannell. He was trying, and this was in the later years of his life, trying to find a way to do a movie of his stuff. And the one they managed to make was A-Team. No offense to anyone I know who worked on A-Team, but it was a yawner. It was like they did it really straight by the book, and it didn't. No one's going to remember that movie.
Yeah.
But then they made 21 Jump Street, and poor Steven. He died of skin cancer like 6 months before 21 Jump Street came out.
No way.
And I always hate it for him because they finally found a way to crack the code.
Right.
Like those Lord and Miller guys doing the 21 Jump Street and Lego, like that you can take a intellectual property or something like that and reboot it, and it doesn't have to suck dick.
Right.
It it can be inventive and fun, and 21 Jump Street did that. At any rate, so I was working for Stephen J. Cannell as a writer assistant on Silk Stockings, and writer assistant is an interesting situation because if you show you've got some skills, some wit about you, you help people crack stories, you help the writers crack stories and help them research stories and all that, and then eventually, theoretically, if they like you, you find a way to pitch episodes yourself.
Right. And
then eventually hope they might give you your shot to write one. So I'd finally ingratiated myself to them enough where they said, okay, you can pitch. We've got a few slots that we haven't, because they got to write 22 episodes a season, and they write some of them in-house, and some of them freelancers come in and write episodes. And so they said, okay, you can pitch some, and I came up with a few episode ideas, and I went in and I pitched them as well as I could. And there was a long pause, and there was a fucking amazing barnacle of a producer named David Levinson who'd been around forever, and he'd talk like this, and it was one of these guys. He had like 2 Emmys and been nominated 48,000 times, and was just like amazing. One of these guys who would blow up. That he was that asshole boss. So everyone, all the producers on this show basically were my boss at the same time. You know? And so this guy is that, you look back at that one boss who's that was the asshole boss that I'm so glad I had.
Oh, yeah. That just really pushed you to the next level.
Oh, yeah. And so I pitched these episodes, and there was a long pause in the room, and he just goes, Daniel, that was the worst fucking pitch I've ever heard. It was
oh, my
brilliant.
God.
It was great. You just imagine the blood running, leaving my face. It's just like, oh, And he just said, when you're pitching something, do it the exact same way you would tell the greatest joke you've ever heard. That same, like leaning across the table kind of energy, check this shit. Even if you're pitching a fucking shitty episode of Silk Stockings, which I'm going to give some props to Silk Stockings right now, because now there are like 6 TV shows where the whole bit is there's a sexy murder at the top.
Right. The same premise. Yeah.
A sexy murder at the top, cops with a history come in. What do you got? Well, Perp escaped through the window, blah, 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 blah. Victim, 22-year-old, blah, 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 call girl, blah, blah. So now it's like there are 50 fucking shows about sexy murder, and this person looks like they're the suspect, but, oh, wait, no, it's this curveball suspect and all that. I mean, it's so funny, but Silk Stockings was pushing that shit on basic fucking cable back in the day. For 7 seasons, I think.
Jesus.
At any rate, eventually I fucking, after that learning thing, after that getting reamed in that pitch session, I came in again and pitched and wrote a Silk Stockings. It was the first thing I wrote. It was I tried to make it as artsy as possible. It was a nod to Stanley Kubrick. It was called A Clockwork Florida Orange because it all took place in Palm Beach.
Oh, nice.
And so it was a cute thing, and I got to put all my friends' names in it as the characters. It was like, yeah. And we put your name of your school and all that. So it was like, I was fucking 22 or something, 23, and it was like,
that's fucking huge, man. That's huge.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And then it was like,
what's it? Take me through that. What's it like going from living on a street where Cops is being filmed to getting that first Hollywood paycheck where you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm actually doing this over here. Like,
well, it felt like a lot of money.
Right.
And it was gone in about 98 days. And that's it. And then you're like, shit, I'm back at completely square one. I've written a Silk Stockings, which to many people in town doesn't mean jack shit. It was a victory for sure. And then there was a small boutique agent who's saying like, I heard you're writing for Silk Stockings. Now I want to get you a Star Trek Next Generation. It's like, oh fuck. And this is where my Hollywood snootery came in, because I kept every day of my work I would see this parade of freelancers, lots of them in the in the golden years of their life, coming in to I think I could write one of these silk stockings. Remember, we go way back. And, like, I just started thinking, like, shit, this isn't, I'm out here because of Mel Brooks.
Right,
You know?
right.
I'm out here because I want to make movies. So I kind of, I declined this agent who wanted to put me on a bunch of shit. Like, it's kind of it was a circuit. Especially back then, there wasn't as much lateral movement between, like, television and movies.
Right.
Now it's a lot more respected, but back then you actually could end up just kind of on this basic cable television circuit.
Right,
like,
right.
Well, I've written 2 Renegades, 3 Silk Stockings, 2 Star Trek Next Generations, and that's, I swear to God, I'm not talking down about that stuff at all. God,
Right.
God bless the men and women who work on shows like that.
Right.
I love it. The more shows, the better. The more people working and getting paid doing entertainment, the better. But that wasn't
you.
That wasn't my thing. Like, the
Right.
most starstruck I've ever been, was when I ended up pissing next to Mel Brooks.
Did you really?
This was at Bernie Brillstein's funeral. Bernie Brillstein
He was an agent, right?
And he was an amazing agent and manager and producer. This is a guy that, like, walked into an open mic and saw a guy named James Henson with some puppets there and was like,
Wow.
"Kid, I think you got something."
Right,
You know, this is
right.
a guy who helped make SNL happen and Hee Haw and fucking
Wow.
50,000 shows and movies in between. Like, he was an absolute badass, and I got to know him a tiny bit. Dear friends with his daughter, but this guy was larger than life. This was the funeral that I couldn't. This funeral, everyone who had ever been on SNL
Right.
was at this funeral. Everyone who had ever been represented by Brillstein Gray
Wow.
was at this funeral. Everyone who would. It was the most amazing night of tears and laughter, and it felt kind of like a roast of a dead guy in a cool way. Like,
Right.
That's exactly how he would want it, you know. And Bill Maher was roasted. It was incredible, and everyone's just blubbering. And at the end, so Jennifer Aniston gets up and says something about him because he repped her, and she can barely hold it together. And then she introduces, are you ready for this? She introduces Kermit the Frog.
Get out of town.
This is at UCLA, by the way, and Royce Hall. This is like, it's insane. There's a production value to this. And so then, on the opposite side of the stage, a light comes up, and there's a log, and Kermit the Frog sings Rainbow Connection.
No way. Holy shit.
You want to see... you could hear tears, like oceans of tears going down.
That's fucking Kermit the Frog.
When you hear tears, you hear tears splattering, like, you know it's something real is happening. So,
well, dude. Like, I heard 2. I think it was 2 stories about Bernie Brillstein. About one that when he used to piss in the urinal, he would take he'd drop trowel right down to his shoes. So you walk in the bathroom and you know Bernie's taking a piss because he's got his pants around his ankles. He doesn't give a shit. He just pisses right there. The second story I heard about Bernie Brillstein was that guy would just have no bones about telling you exactly how you're doing. Like, if you blew up a set on TV, like if you were just kicking ass on, like, the late night and you called Bernie backstage and said, "How did I do?" He'd say, "Hey, you got a stain on your shirt and you look like shit, but you did okay, kid."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think there are 2 kinds of people that become gigantic here, and
right.
Some of them it's because they're fake enough to play the game and be gigantic, or
right.
they're so fucking real.
Yeah.
They're so fucking real that they're just an undeniable force, and that's who he was.
Wow.
But at any rate, I thought it was a moment where I got to make Mel Brooks laugh. We're pissing next to each other. He doesn't know me from shit. He didn't know me from a fucking hole in the wall.
Right.
But we're pissing next to each other. This is right after this thing, and he was older than Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is older than Bernie was. Anyway, there was a big age difference between them, and I was pissing next to Mel Brooks, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm pissing next to fucking Mel Brooks. What do I say? And all that could occur to me at the time was, how the fuck is Bernie Brillstein dead and you're still alive?
No way did you say that.
And
Holy
he
shit.
laughed, and I was like, fuck, that was good.
Like, looks over, you got moxie, kid. I love
Yeah,
it.
I got a moxie. But everyone there, like, if you were there, you at least knew Bernie. And, and it was the spirit of the whole thing was people talking shit. It was.
Oh man, that is dynamite.
Yeah. So that was the God. How did I even end up on Bernie fucking Brillstein? Oh, Mel Brooks. Oh yeah. So yeah, Snoot. Man, this is going to be the most rambling guest you've ever had. So yeah. So at any rate, I start thinking like, well, man, I want to make movies. That's what I want to do. So I stopped writing TV stuff. And just started writing specs, started writing movie stuff, and lived like a pauper for 10 years doing that.
Yeah, how did you,
it's
like,
a fucking hard thing. The thing about TV is
at least
nice
it's a
fucking paycheck.
Steady paycheck, right? And so, like, did you feel like if you would have stayed in writing but kept, like, is it impossible to kind of work that too, or do you think that you needed to take a break from writing for TV in order to focus entirely on writing for movies?
It's a good question. Like, I certainly would have gotten less writing done because then you're really kind of focused on writing whatever show you're on. If you're on staff, then you have a hiatus, and then and everyone would dive into their own personal projects on hiatus. Like, oh, I'm going to write a spec this hiatus. I'm going to write this and this and that.
Right.
But at this point, I wrote 9 specs that did nothing before I got to anything that did something. So that process of learning how to write a fucking movie.
Yeah.
Learning how to write a movie that reads well, and when a fucking exec who's eating a croissant and drinking a latte and fielding calls can still appreciate what they're reading.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of variables that go into writing a screenplay. So, ultimately, it's the journey I chose. I'm not sure. Like, I know I could write TV. I think I could write it. Maybe it almost was this is not the right word, too easy, at least the stuff I was working on, where it wasn't challenging me.
Sure. That makes sense.
What's always interested me is making people laugh. That's been from middle school on. It was, I'm going to try and make people laugh. So to find your joy in your work, to find joy in my work, I don't think it would have been writing Star Trek Next Generation.
Right.
I think I would have kept writing ones that were. Why is this so funny? Why are you trying to write it funny? Oh, don't you see? So Data, right? Okay, so he's got a sore on his cock. Okay, but where he's from, that could mean so like. So yeah, I think it would have been a mismatch ultimately.
Right.
But that's all coming back around, and so what happens is I've been working on on feature stuff and having some good luck getting stuff set up. But it all comes back around, because then what did my agent say to me like 6 months ago? They say, hey, you need to get into TV. So so now you're kind of the feature guy going in and pitching TV stuff, and happy to say, like, I'm my buddy Trevor Moore, who did The Whitest Kids You Know for a long time. Sketch show Whitest Kids You Know. He and I cooked up a TV show idea, and Steve Carell's company is producing it, and we're taking it out next week.
Oh, that's badass.
Network. Man. So like, I think I'm gonna end up working in TV. So
that's amazing though, man. But now, like, when you took that break and you started writing specs, one of them ended up getting picked up by 20th Century Fox, right? Yeah,
I wrote this is like, so to write a bunch of specs in that time where I wrote 9 specs that didn't do jack shit, like you need to pay bills.
Right.
And so I did 20 different jobs in there. And one day, and for about a year, I was a nanny.
No shit.
Yeah, I was a fucking babysitter / nanny for these great kids up in the valley. And one day, my job was to have them make their letters to Santa. And so I'm looking down as the kids make their letters to Santa, and I'm looking at the word Santa as they put glitter all over it and on the glue and all that. And I thought, man, it's funny how close Santa is to Satan.
Right.
And literally at that moment, I thought, holy fuck. A kid writes a letter asking for a toy, but accidentally sends it to Satan instead of Santa.
for those listening right now, I mean, I ended up reading a bit more into this, but I want you to set it up because it's such a brilliant premise for a movie that like you kind of gloss over it. You know what I mean? Like when you're growing up and I mean, when you write down Santa, you look at the word and you're like, gee, that's like a fucking letter off, man. Like there's not much, and that's a pretty big leap. But I mean, it's such a brilliant premise, but continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I sat down and fucking just started writing this a movie about a slightly dyslexic Ohio girl who's writing her letter, who's asking for like the Tickle Me Elmo of the year.
Right.
It's like the Robotron 3000, and she really wants it, and she says, please bring me the da-da-da-da. And as she addresses the letter, she flips a couple letters, and it goes, and literally you follow it to the post office, and there are all these letters going to the North Pole, Santa, 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 and then the postman sees the one to Satan and kind of shrugs and puts on an oven mitt and goes to the wall and shoves it in a slot, and we follow it down to hell. So it's like this kind of magical, real, but it...
Oh,
Satan gets this letter, and of course he's been bored as hell for 100,000 years, sitting down there, starting tornadoes and shit, and he's like ready for it. This is the shake-up just he needs. So he thinks this is his opportunity to start the apocalypse, and he comes up, but he has to do the bidding of the one who invited him. So bottom line, it's Satan being dragged around by a very sassy 7-year-old girl trying to find a toy at the Christmas rush. And of course, through that process, it's a very much a kind of Grinch story,
right?
But with the ultimate evil in the universe instead of the Grinch, it's
right?
Like, this unlikely friendship. He was the Prince of Darkness. She was the cutest little ball of fun you've ever seen. Together, this Christmas, 20th Century Fox and the Farrelly Brothers present. Yeah, so I wrote this fucking thing, and it's a tricky sell. It was because it was a Christmas movie about Satan,
right?
So there's a little bit of a tricky sell, and people immediately it became something people were talking about. But who was going to actually take it in? Who was actually going to take it in? There was a lot of people worried about it. A few people circling. We said, whoever takes it in, whoever takes it in first, it's yours,
right?
And God loved the Farrelly brothers who said, we're going to take it into Fox and set it up at Fox.
Wow.
And so they're doing a punch-up. They're throwing some jokes in it and doing a tweak to it. And then supposedly Fox wants to go forward with it and make it. So we'll see.
Damn.
I hear rumors about who's interested in playing Satan that I cannot confirm or deny. But
right.
It looks like this might happen. And it helps that the Farrelly brothers are... their trailer for Dumb and Dumber 2 is testing through. Actually, the movie's testing through the roof. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Dumb and Dumber 2.
I have. I actually went to go see. Oh man, I think I went to go see A Million Ways to Die in the West, and I think it came on that. I think the trailer came through right before, or maybe it was a movie I saw afterwards. Maybe it was the Tom Cruise, or I don't know. It was a movie I saw a couple weeks ago, but. It came through, and I was just like, holy shit, man. Like, you just can't get any better than this.
So in college, that was the movie. So Dumb and Dumber was the movie in college. It's like, oh shit, we have 92 minutes before dinner time.
Right.
Put in Dumb and Dumber. We have, it was the movie everyone was quoting. Two people shoving at a party. It's like, kick his ass, Seabass. That was that was the movie for us in college, for my crew of people. And so it was a really fun life moment when, this was right after Christmas. I got a phone call from my buddy at their company. He said, what are you doing in an hour? I said, you tell me what I'm doing in an hour. He said, you go to the screening room down off Pacific, and your name will be at the front. And so I end up in this fucking screening room with the Farrelly brothers and Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels, and 8 other people in the fucking world who are seeing the first assembly of Dumb and Dumber 2.
Holy shit.
No backup music, no nothing. And it was literally from the editing bay thrown up on the screen.
No way.
Like, what a life moment this is. Because that was the movie in college. It was one of the movies that inspired me to do comedy. And then I'm kind of sitting in this room and watching the movie that took 20 years for them to get the shit together and make.
Right.
It took 20 years. Which is great, because they totally freely admit that in the movie, where it starts in an insane asylum, and he's just been sitting there for 20 years. But Yeah, so that was a big deal to have that first. I had, done some rewrite jobs before that here and there, but
Right.
that was the first kind of, it's a town that very largely people follow Heat.
Right.
So an outfit like the Farrelly Brothers and take it in, and the studio says, yes, this is something we're interested in doing, then suddenly all your other stuff gets more attention. Suddenly people want to, that script ended up on like Blacklist and ended
Right.
up being, it's a good script. It's not like a schlock
Yeah.
Christmas movie. Like it asks, I don't know, I like to think there's some sophistication there. At any rate, it ended up getting me a ton of meetings and setting up other stuff and other jobs, and it kind of was started a little snowballing effect,
Wow.
career-wise.
Well,
Once one thing goes.
And it's so interesting because like when the Farrelly Brothers come out, that's why I really love interviewing writers, and I'm a big fan of yours. I think we met on Twitter actually quite a while ago, but I've been a huge fan of yours for since you and I had met, but the magic that goes behind the movie. I mean, of course, these guys are the faces. They direct and they put it all together, so to speak. But there's a real magic behind a script, and there's a real magic behind the idea behind those things. And I was actually having this conversation with a couple of people on the show about that, where like when a movie comes out, and to me the magic of it is truly seeing something or hearing or an idea that I've never thought of before. Because usually you can go into a movie and somewhere some time ago there was a movie that would be considered similar to it, or there would be something that has similar qualities or maybe some of the same jokes. But when you go see a Farrelly Brother movie, like I remember when I saw Dumb and Dumber, that was back in that was fucking like 95. It was like 2 years after I graduated high school, man. It was like college, man. Dumb and Dumber was huge. And then they come out with like Kingpin, and I'd never seen anything like that. Something about Mary blew my hair off. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, who thinks of this shit and who puts it on the screen? Like, you know what I mean? And then like me, myself, and Irene, they went on to do, of course, everybody, Shallow Hal and Heartbreak Kid and Hall Pass, and all these movies, and you're just like, why are that like? And it's just like you can go see a Farrelly Brothers movie and pretty much say to yourself, I've never seen this before. Like, I'm going to watch something that I've never seen before.
There's always something in it, and and I felt that way about Hall Pass, which they hit this is probably the reason why it's why Dumb and Dumber 2, which I cried laughing at, is going to be a big, nice resurgence for them in a way, because people have kind of they entered some murky waters there where stuff may not have performed the way their other things did. But Hall Pass is a perfect example. Like, Hall Pass has a couple things in it. I thought it was a funny movie, but Hall Pass has a couple things in it that you have never seen anywhere else.
Right.
And I respect that about them.
Sure. Yeah, like, absolutely.
There's some shit in there that they, but it's really interesting when you become as big as they are.
Right.
You also don't have people telling you. People don't tell you boo anymore.
Right.
People aren't saying, you know what, this script might be too long, or this or that, or this scene, or this or that. And so you're kind of flying blind in a way.
Right.
Because there is a process to putting out. I know when they put out Dumb and Dumber, they were probably getting notes from all over the fucking place.
Right.
And a lot of pressure from the outside. And then they became so gigantic that it's like, here's the money.
Right.
When will you have the movie done by?
Right.
And and then Heartbreak Kid comes out, and people have stuff to say about it, and maybe it doesn't perform the way they hope. But it's just a real interesting situation when someone gets, like a Sandler, when someone is, everything they're putting out is a hit, they become very powerful.
Sure.
And rightly so. They've made a ton of money for people. They made a ton of money for studios and all that. But it's always very interesting to see. But they've always had, even in movies that people aren't going to talk about 20 years from now, there's always stuff in there that I haven't seen before.
Right. Tell me about your writing. I know you are, obviously aside from the movie end of things, you've also written a couple of books, right? if I'm not mistaken.
I've written with George Wallace. We just started our second book.
Okay.
And George Wallace is someone, our shared manager sent me out to Vegas to meet George. Like, you've never met George, you got to go see George's show and talk to him afterwards. I'll tell him you're coming. And then went to see George's show at the Flamingo.
Right.
And then afterwards, oh, you're Dan. Christopher says you're funny. I'll decide if you're funny, right? And so it's like, send me a batch of jokes,
Right.
And so George, we ended up at this diner, the Pepper Mill, which is, actually it is in his new Comedians in Cars with Coffee. Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, he and Jerry go to the Pepper Mill. It's like the comedian hangout in Vegas. And we went there until like 4 a.m. It's just this guy. I can't believe I'm even sitting there with that guy.
Dude, it's just legend, man. Legendary.
Just a legend. And so, I sent him a batch of stuff. He's like, I think you're a natural joke writer. And so we kind of just started kicking shit around together and ended up, ultimately we ended up writing a book called Laugh It Off.
Right.
Together. And a lot of it's based on all of his. You're talking about someone who had, at that point when we started that book, he had 35 years of jokes.
Wow.
35 years of jokes to jump into and a catalog to jump into. And I was going through old transcripts of Carson appearances and just finding jokes and kind of applying them to, we tried to do the book is kind of a guide to living life with laughter. Kind of,
right.
I'd say it straddles the self-help and humor aisles.
Sure.
It's all like you can find the funny angle on everything, and that's kind of his message in it. So it was a lot of finding George Wallace jokes.
Right.
Some shit he hadn't told in 30 years.
That's incredible.
But it applied to a part of the book.
Yeah.
And so fleshing that out and segues and it was great. And so we wrote a book. We're just about to start a second one, and working with George Wallace, it's just it's amazing.
Yeah, and he gives you
to Vegas whenever I can.
Yeah, he gives you tons of
George Wallace.
He gives you tons of props on Twitter all the time.
No, George and I we started at the same time.
Right.
And it was fascinating, because I feel like I tweet probably more than him. He tweets a lot, but I tweet. There's a difference it's fun. Twitter's funny. When you're a famous person, you get a certain number of followers because you joined Twitter.
Right.
Right? But George isn't, super freaking famous. So George really started working it and really, he's really, really worked it.
Right.
And at first, for an old school comedian, it's like, wait, why would I give away jokes for free?
Sure.
It's like, well, wait, watch this. And so, George, let's take this joke you did in 1982, right? It's something like, man, the Atlanta Braves are horrible, People going in that stadium ordering hot dogs to go, right? Which is, I think, one of his best jokes, because I just love the fucking visual of someone parking at a stadium and what a pain in the ass it is to get into the stadium. And you have a ticket, obviously, to get into the fucking game. To order, but the team is so bad, you just order a hot dog to go. I think that joke works so beautifully on so many levels, But it's like, so let's watch this. So you throw up a joke you did in 1982 that's really just a two-liner,
right.
and then it's retweeted by Michael Ian Black or Andy Richter or someone, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now George, that joke just went to 800,000 people.
Right.
You just told a joke to a bigger arena than you will ever play.
Exactly.
And from that moment, George has been like, "Oh shit!"
but it took that to understand.
Well, and I think a lot of comedians, especially old school comedians, have that feeling of like, wait, but why would I give away a joke for free? Like,
right.
Wait a minute, they have they've done beautifully,
right.
Telling jokes to audiences, making appearances on TV and all that. Mm-hmm. So new media is an interesting realm. Social media is an interesting realm.
Right.
But once you realize, like, George, you're the guy. Now George Wallace is the guy in his 60s.
Right.
That's throwing out gold.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's it's a beautiful thing to see. And there aren't that many guys from the old school that are doing that.
No.
Regularly.
I don't know if I know any other ones.
Or there are people who will tweet something every, once a week or something, and there'll be some maybe an observation or something like that, but
Right.
like who are engaging like that
Yeah.
often, and so. But
No,
that's
and I
been
think it's the
amazing.
same thing. Like, I think I ended up following you, or I heard of you. I mean, you've got some obviously some big names that follow you, guys like Julius Sharp and David Nussbaum and Alex Bays and all those guys who write. I mean, those are pretty heavy hitters, and I think I saw it was a retweet by somebody because like that's the kind of magic of Twitter, like you had said, the social media aspect of it, is that someone who might have never seen a joke or thought something was funny, all of a sudden sees a retweet, like you said, by Andy Richter or a Julius Sharp or something like that, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second, who's this guy? And then you click on that profile, and I'm like, this guy is fucking gold. Like, I just read 100 tweets by him, and everything is funny.
Yeah, it's an amazing format, and a way to retell a joke while citing that retweet button, helping retell someone's great joke,
right,
and citing them in it,
right,
with a picture of them,
exactly.
And then someone can choose to hear all their other jokes and go look at that. It's an amazing fucking. It's a revolution in joke telling,
It is.
and it's like, and so George was and continues to be very generous as far as. When he sees some shit, he goes and checks out what I'm doing, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna retweet that. That's funny. And my stuff's much dirtier than his. He keeps it pretty clean."
Yeah. He's kind of the old school. Like, people don't even know. I mean, him and Jerry Seinfeld are like best friends, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I think he was actually his best man at Jerry Seinfeld's wedding, even. And like,
when
I say that
was.
to people, they're like, "What, George?" I'm like, "Yeah, George Wallace, man, like that." Yeah. So he comes from that old school of keep it clean, keep it classy. The one-liner, punch. And I mean, he's always been that type of comedian. He can just like
he always has, but it's amazing because he has a ton of respect for the way they all do it, for everyone having their own thing.
Sure.
And he came from a place where, back in the day when he first moved to L.A., it was late 70s, early 80s, it was Jay Leno's house. Jay Leno's house was the place where everyone workshopped their shit.
No shit.
And he was inside with Jay and Jerry, keeping it clean, like these guys, coming up with their jokes and fucking, out on the porch smoking God knows what. Like, Pryor and Kennison and these guys, and George lived this. I mean, it's fucking insane. Like, and these guys, and it's exactly, Robin Williams is smoking everything he gets his fucking hands on, and it's like,
just imagine.
But just this very, even within the comedian, but they always respected each other's shit, even though some of them were obviously caught up a lot more in the game,
in the lifestyle,
in the lifestyle, and others were like keeping their.
Wow, man!
And they were all brilliant in their own way.
That's crazy.
I mean, Jay Leno gets bagged on a lot, but that guy's a giant, man. He's a giant of comedy, and yes, he kept it clean, and maybe people say it was kind of corny, but you know what? Fuck, what's funny is so relative.
Absolutely.
It's so subjective, and so just know every time you groan at a Jay Leno joke, there's a family in Dubuque crying, laughing, starting laughing.
Absolutely.
It's like that, like I read a lot of family comedy movies and shit. And it's like it's hard to write that stuff. It's actually hard to write funny and stay clean.
Yeah.
Or to make something edgy funny, like Lego Movie.
Right.
That's funny, even though I can take my daughter to see Lego Movie.
Sure.
So
and it's such an interesting, dichotomy, really. I mean, like, if I was just having this conversation the other day, and it was like, when you talk about like reality shows or like scripted shows or what have you, and it's like, you think like, okay, hack is hack for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, hack can work because you can read a beautifully well scripted show and just be like, wow, like that was fucking brilliant. And then you can turn on the TV, and as you're flipping through, you come across, Southern Fried Towing or, like whatever the fuck it is, like some, Lizard Lick thing or like, Duck Dynasty. And you're like, well, I don't understand who could get behind this. But then you realize like this is a major powerhouse for a reason. And I mean, obviously it's a completely different level from, the comedians that actually write and, guys like Seinfeld and George and stuff like that. But just in a parallel, as in humor can be appreciated in all different facets. There's always going to be an audience that you're going to appeal to in some way.
Yeah, and it's I have always it makes me giddy when someone unexpectedly no one understood Tyler Perry's audience, by the way, right? And then and I'm not saying I don't necessarily enjoy Tyler Perry stuff, but no one understood till out of nowhere Tyler Perry made a movie that led the box office.
Right.
That knocked a bunch of studio shit in the face.
Absolutely.
Like, wait, what was this? What was this? Oh, it's a guy that used to go around and do a ton of plays, and it's a guy who knows his audience and nailed this audience and fucking made a shit ton of money.
That's right.
And made a lot of people laugh. Like, it's not like people were sitting in their seats like, I can't believe we paid to see this. Tyler Perry owns an island.
Exactly.
God damn it, he owns a fucking island. When a man owns an island, when someone owns an island, man or woman, you stop talking shit about them. They won. They've won.
Exactly.
If they own the island, they won. Just the second, if it's like, hey man, this shit is weak, dude, and they turn and they do that, they throw their hand back and they present to you and you see their island behind them, it's like, all right. Tuck your tail with you. All right, you got the fucking island.
You won. Fuck.
You got an island. Yo, you won, G.
Oh,
you
my
won,
God.
G. The wet t-shirt contest, motherfucker. You won, G.
Oh my God! So what's next for Mr. Dan Ewen as we're winding down?
Yeah, winding down.
I know that
it's been 4 hours. It's been 4 hours. I don't know how long.
Dude, I could have you on I could have you on like all day long, man. I think you're one of the most entertaining guests I've had. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
I appreciate
man.
that. I feel like just talking about myself. This rarely fucking happens. This is amazing.
Are you kidding? I was just interviewed Eli Braden and
oh, cool.
Another guy, just totally down to earth, totally humble, and I said, man, I go, yeah, I'd love to have you back on, and he goes, why the fuck wouldn't I want to talk about myself for like an hour? I fucking love this. Are you kidding me? Of course I would. But,
there's no other format where you can do this without being seen as an egomaniac and an asshole. So just if I did this at a dinner,
yeah.
No, this is thank you for allowing me this. I learned about myself.
Well, it's cool because I do this show just so that when I go out to LA, I can say, "Hey, Dan, let's go to Coffee Bean," and I can take a picture with you and be like, "Hey, everybody, I know fucking Dan Ewen."
Well, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm about to taking that TV show out that Steve Carell is producing.
Right.
That I did with Trevor Moore, who's at iTrevorMoore. He's very funny. He's one of the founders of The Whitest Kid You Know, and
awesome.
Is a bad motherfucker, and we're about to take this TV show out. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about because we're literally about to walk into networks with it.
Beautiful.
And I just found out that Kevin James is doing a movie I wrote and with Lionsgate. So that was very exciting. That just happened like last week.
Wow, man.
And just fucking, I'm producing the new Ernest movie, Son of Ernest.
Yeah.
I wrote it, and then the other producers on it who went and conjured up the rights, I was able to convince them to throw me on as a producer as well, so I could help run with this ball. And so we're fucking slugging this thing out, and
beautiful.
We know we're at least going to make it indie, and we have it. It's actually in the hands of a gigantic fucking. I'm not even going to throw his name out there. It's in the hands of a gigantic behemoth mega producer, Bad Mama Jamma, right now, who might produce it, and it would all just fall in place effortlessly if that happens. Otherwise, we already have indie money to make this Son of Ernest movie, which is very exciting.
Amazing.
I grew up in Georgia for the most part, and I to me, the Ernest movies occupy this crazy, kitschy place in Americana, and I am very interested in making that fucking happen in a smart, cool way. Again, Lego Movie, 21 Jump Street. There are ways to do. I don't know. We're doing it smart and inventive and cool and blah blah blah.
I was going to say, I grew up. I think I grew up with my stepdad saying, "You know what I mean, Vern?" Like on every fucking turn of my life, you know what I mean? It's that stuff stays with you forever, man. And whether you're 12 or 13 or whether you're 40, that it stays with you. I could say that, and some people know what you're talking about for sure.
And that's a movie those movies, that whole fucking thing started as like, hey, let's do a local commercial for this dairy.
Right.
And then it ended up being 9 movies, 4,000 commercials, Saturday morning, Emmy-winning Saturday morning show, toy line on shelves.
Wow.
Like, that's a crazy bolt of lightning.
It is.
And so it's something that, and the producers I'm doing this with, they were dear friends with Jim Varney, and they were in on the whole original, so it's going to be done in a very cool way. Like, there's a version of this that ends up with freaking like Larry the Cable Guy, and it's like blow my fucking brains out, really. Like that's not what I'm interested in. No offense, Larry. Now I'm gonna be like, this would be great. Maybe if I could somehow get Larry the Cable Guy as a nemesis off of this podcast. Do you have that type of juice?
I'm gonna start tagging him in every fucking thing I do now.
Now, what is he? Doesn't he do Pepsid commercials or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's Pepsid. You see, he drives that monster truck around in a circle.
Yeah, is it Pepsid, or what is Pepsid's number thing? If I start talking shit about Pepsid, then people go,
dude, we can really make some enemies.
Pepsid doesn't work, guys. Pepsid, it's awful, and there's kittens. They use kittens to make it.
They grind up kitties.
There's kittens in there. Don't use Pepsid. And Larry the Cable Guy, he's the one who puts the kittens in it. He just tosses them in a grinder. You
might as well just call it Whiskers AC.
Fuck you, Larry the Cable Guy. Fuck that guy.
Oh, we're burning Hollywood bridges here. I love it.
I know.
I love it.
This will be the last time you hear from me alive. This will be it. This is it. He disappeared shortly after recording the podcast.
I'll be on Dateline.
Yeah.
Oh, I
don't know
great.
what happened. I just heard a scream, and then the phone cut out.
Oh my God! Oh,
right.
Fuck! You're
we
killing
did it.
me. Yeah, beautiful. And here, you were worried about not being interesting enough for my audience.
Yeah.
I think hands down one of the top interviews I've done.
Aww.
People can find Dan Ewen on Twitter at Vaguely Funny Dan. I'm going to put all the links up to your stuff, to your home address, your phone number, your fucking everything.
Postal, bank, routing.
Kids'
Don't
school.
Forget the routing.
The routing number.
You can't just do the bank account. Do the routing.
The routing numbers.
Route that shit.
And hey, when your next project is up and running, will you come back on the show?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, man.
Anytime.
You know
awesome. What Eli Braden says? Why wouldn't I come back on the show and talk about myself for an hour?
Amen.
That's what Eli Braden says. Maybe he can be my nemesis. He'll be my backup nemesis if Larry the Cable Guy doesn't pan out.
That dude is so funny, man. And
yeah.
And he's just like, it was funny because we had this long conversation about not selling out. And he was like, I'd sell my fucking parents down the river for a fucking gig right now. Are you kidding me? I'd sell anything. Oh, beautiful. Well, hey, man.
Good talking to you.
Hey, you too, Dan. Thanks for coming on the show and telling us, a bit about your background. And I'm looking forward to seeing all your projects, come out and just keep on doing what you're doing, brother. It's fucking funny shit. I love it.
Thanks a lot, Jake.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.